So friends, welcome to this lecture on Rousseau, reading Rousseau by David Boucher. So this is a continuation of the previous day reading of David Boucher. So today we are about to talk the plastic man. That plastic man is a word coined by David Boucher in his reading of Rousseau. And after elaborating Rousseau's idea of natural law, Rousseau's idea of natural rights, state of nature, and the intellectual background of Rousseau, David Boucher is going to tell you something about Rousseauian concept of humans. What exactly is human? So we have seen political philosophers are particularly preoccupied with the idea of who is a man. So there's a tradition in political philosophy. Every philosopher who, before proposing a systematic thought about the human social world, begins their thought system by referring to man and his nature. So here too, Rousseau, according to David Boucher, has a distinct understanding about who is a man. So Rousseau, according to David Boucher, deploys fashionable vocabularies. Boucher uses the word fashionable vocabularies to refer to the linguistic talents of Rousseau. So Rousseau uses fashionable vocabularies of natural rights and Rousseau, certainly a contractualist who makes use of the techniques used by Thomas Hobbes and John Locke and propose almost a similar notion of contract theory. However, David Boucher argues that Rousseau had a considerable departure. Rousseau had a considerable departure from the traditions associated with the doctrine of social contract, vis-a-vis John Locke and Thomas Hobbes. And friends, Rousseau denies that humanity or man has an immutable moral character. Rousseau never believed. That is, according to Rousseau, man's character is not fixed. It is an unfinished agenda. Nature or God, no matter what it is, the Creator didn't finish their agenda of human. So Rousseau, when you look back, as I told you in the previous lecture, in the ancient world, according to Rousseau, humans had a comparatively a better life. Humans had comparatively a virtuous life. But what happens in the medieval era? Their virtue has lost. And what happens in the modern era? They created a wrong society. They created a wrong political authority. Thereby, man lost his nature, which according to Rousseau is amor di soi. So for Rousseau, the agenda of man is not finished, and the nature of man is not fixed. That's why Rousseau says, according to David Boucher, Rousseau doesn't believe that man has an immutable moral nature. Doesn't believe that man has an immutable, that is, a fixed, not able to change. Man's character is always changing. But Rousseau also doesn't believe the idea that, Rousseau never believed the idea that, but these social contractualists generally believe that man got a fixed character, be it social Thomas Hobbes or John Locke. They believe, both of them believe, man got a fixed character. Hobbes believed that man is more occupied with the self-preservation, and Locke says that all of us are more concerned with our own right to life, liberty, and property. That is our fixed nature. But when it comes to Rousseau, Rousseau never believed that you are always looking for the self-preservation, nor looking at the protection of your right to life, liberty, and property. That is not man's fixed character. And also Rousseau never believed the idea that society is created to protect some pre-existing inalienable natural rights. Friends, Rousseau never believed this idea. Rousseau never believed this idea that society is created to protect certain pre-existing inalienable natural rights. So that is what Locke says, that is what Hobbes says. Why we created society? To protect certain inalienable rights. And Rousseau never believed that we created society in order to protect certain inalienable natural rights. Rousseau says, state of nature is not a moral condition. State of nature is not a moral condition. And for both Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, state of nature was a moral condition. What was the moral condition according to Thomas Hobbes' state of nature? That man was engaged in a war of all against all, in which man's nature was controlled by what may be called natural law. A natural law gave entitlement to individuals. What was that? Self-preservation. And when it comes to John Locke, there were natural laws. And what was the entitlement of the natural laws? Your right to life, liberty, and property. But friends, Rousseau never believed that we have created a society not to protect such rights. And state of nature was not a moral condition. State of nature was not a moral condition. The inhabitants of the natural society, that is, a society that existed prior to the birth of political order. The inhabitants of that natural society is so deficient in reason, are so deficient in reason. Rousseau was saying that in the natural world, humans were so deficient in reason that even if there were moral law, for example, suppose you think that there were some kind of moral law, you say natural law, under which you got certain rights. Rousseau was saying that we are not in a position to understand that natural law nor natural rights. Why? Look friends, we are motivated by amor di soi only. I have told you in the previous lecture, referring to David Boucher, that we just know what we know. And we are not able to distinguish between bad thing and right thing. As I told you yesterday, if you like ice cream, you just like ice cream. We don't know whether it's a bad ice cream or a good ice cream, whether this ice cream is sold by that person and that person has so many problems, that's why he's become an ice cream seller, and he makes a living out of that ice cream. We don't know anything about. We just know that I love that ice cream and I love to eat it. That is what we know, and we are not able to make sense of anything because we don't have that skill, because we didn't create any reason, any intelligence. We are in a natural state. We just look at things, like it, and we move on. So that even if, suppose, just like Thomas Hobbes say or Locke say, there existed some natural law in the nature, maybe there are, but we are not in a position to understand it. So Rousseau will tell you that we were so much deficient of reason, we were so much deficient of intelligence, so that we were not able to understand natural law nor natural rights in this state of nature. And human nature is not immutable. Human nature is not immutable. Rousseau maintains that man's nature differs from age to age. Man's nature differs from age to age. Man's character in the ancient world isn't his character in the medieval world, isn't his character in the modern world, isn't his character in the contemporary world. Man's character is changing from age to age, generation to generation. And that's why he was saying that man's character is not it's not fixed. The soul that you possess, the passions that you possess, along with your new needs and pleasure, will change. Friends, your soul, your heart, your passion for things, your passion for ice cream, or your passion for mobile, your passion for clothes, that will change. That will change from time to time. Along with your needs change, along with your nature of pleasure change. Today you may like apple. Day after tomorrow, you may like orange. Afterwards, you may like banana. Just like that, your pleasure change, your need change, and your soul and your passion change. It's not a fixed character. So the question, what was the ultimate happiness of human beings? Rousseau investigates what was the ultimate happiness of a human being. It's difficult to answer. Rousseau says the ultimate happiness for the savage, the noble savage, the ultimate happiness for the savage would reduce the civilized man to despair. Look, Rousseau's fashionable exercise of vocabulary. He's becoming more romantic about man. That is, what he investigates, what is the ultimate happiness for a human being? Even if your character is not fixed, even if your nature is not fixed, friends, you think you all get married one day, you get offspring, they become married and they get offspring, you build a house, you have bank loans, you have cars, you have social relations. Friends, at the end of the day, man asks himself, what is happiness in life? What is happiness in life? I have used as much ice cream as possible. I had as much friends as possible. I had as much wealth as possible. I had as much pleasure as possible. Are you happy? It's a very interesting question, friends. It's a very interesting question. So Rousseau is questioning the very definition of happiness. What does it mean to say man is happy? What does it mean to say man is happy? When you ask somebody that, are you happy? What does it mean to say, are you happy? That's why Rousseau says the ultimate happiness for the savage would reduce the civilized man to despair. That is, for a civilized man, happiness is different, and a savage man, happiness is different. So the problem is not with the savage man or the civilized man, but the problem is with how you define happiness. And a writer called Robert Walker, has pointed out that more than any modern thinker, more than any modern thinker, Robert Walker says that more than any modern thinker, Rousseau believed that human nature is shaped by politics. See, Rousseau was the first political philosopher to argue that man's nature is shaped by politics. Maybe Aristotle said that, or Plato said that, or ancient Greek people said that, that man's finest activity, man's best activity is political activity. But friends, that is different from what Rousseau said about man's nature. Rousseau says, friends, your character is shaped by politics. That is, Leon-Strauss, for example, has gone as far as to suggest that Leon-Strauss, an American political philosopher, has gone as far as to suggest that Rousseau's man is infinitely malleable. Rousseau's man is infinitely malleable. We should not overstate this aspect of his thought. That is, while there is considerable scope for molding human character, of course, in Rousseau's conception of human nature, there is immense possibilities for molding, shaping human character, human nature, but it is not limitless. That is, there is also a limit. There is a full stop somewhere in your possibility to mold human character. But Rousseau's interpretation is that human character, is an unfinished agenda. Society can shape man's character from time to time, and man's society can be improved by establishing a state on ethical principle. If you establish a good society based on moral principle, man will be good. That's why Leon-Strauss or Robert Walker, by investigating theoretically into the nature of man being proposed by Rousseau in his Social Contract book, that, friends, it's not right to say that, it's not fair to say that Rousseau's man is subjected to molding in an unending limit. No. Leon-Strauss, for example, says that it is not limitless. There is some particular point at which there is no going beyond human nature. Even though Rousseau presented man as something that is changing from time to time, there is some limit. So natural man, according to Rousseau, is motivated by sentiments of self-love and pity that I told you in the previous lecture on the same reading, David Boucher. That is, your character is shaped by your sentiments of what kind? Self-love, that you love yourself. And friends, self-love is not bad according to Rousseau. Self-love is not bad. And self-love of Rousseau is not like the self-love of Thomas Hobbes, or not like the self-love of John Locke. John Locke and Thomas Hobbes proposed a social contract theory primarily because man's self-love finally results in his own death or conflict in his society. That man love himself. That is why they created a political authority in which right and liberty are interpreted by the state, not by the individual. But when it comes to Rousseau, friends, Rousseau is arguing that your character, your behavior, your actions are shaped by self-love and pity. That is, you love yourself and you have sentiments for others. But also Rousseau is arguing that man also possesses a free will and the capacity. Man also possesses a free will. That is a will that is not shaped by anything. That is, here Rousseau argued that your character is shaped by your self-love, that you like ice cream, that you like car, you don't know just that thing and you don't know its rightness or badness. That aspect, that is self-love and pity. But friends, Rousseau also arguing that even though you know only what you like, there is also a free will in your heart that is hiding deep beneath your heart, that is buried deep and deep inside your soul, and that is capable of a free will. You have a capacity, but that is buried inside you. And at present, your character is shaped by self-love and pity. But you have a free will that is not shaped by anything, but that is there in you, buried deep inside you. And you have a capacity. Man got a capacity, natural capacity, but that is buried inside him for perfectibility and for self-improvement. You can correct yourself. You can improve yourself. You can perfect yourself. Rousseau has the opinion that man's character got a plasticity, that you can stretch man to any direction. You can stretch man to any direction the way you like. You can take him to left side or right side. You can take him to forward or backward, because man is basically God basically a character that is not fixed. So it can be shaped. It can be shaped. So that's why Rousseau calls plasticity. It is more elastic. Man's character is more elastic. That is amenable. Your character is amenable to any extent, to good things and bad things. You can exalt and you can stretch it to depraved influences. You can stretch it to good influences as well bad influences. So Rousseau, in his book Social Contract, page number 151, says that individual becomes transformed. You will become transformed. You will become transformed from a stupid, limited animal. That is the animal who is motivated by self-love, not selfish love, self-love. And you entered into a society, but that society is corrupt, where your self-love has become selfish love, that is amor proper. Before that you had amor di soi, that was good, that you liked ice cream and you only know that you liked ice cream. But when you enter into a society, what happens? You began to think about the fairness of your liking, that whether that person like or love me when I like or when I eat that ice cream, whether that person think very bad about me when I do something. That is called amor proper. So that, you became stupid when you created a society, when you created notions of art, when you created notions of culture, when you created notions of state and political other difference, you became stupid, you became corrupt, and your amor di soi lost. Before that, before all these things, you got a beautiful character that is called amor di soi. That was good because you are in the nature that you just liked what you liked, and you don't know the rightness or fairness of that thing. And you were happy with that. You are content. But what happened when you created society? When you created modern society, there were a lot of expectations, that fell upon man. So man began to behave according to the expectation. Man began to move behind glory, that what other people would think about me. And all your actions were motivated by what other people thoughts about Your actions were, your behavior, your thoughts were motivated by thoughts about what other people would think about you. You began to judge. You began to judge whether my particular action is right or wrong. So that's stupidity. But friends, Rousseau was arguing that in Social Contract book, page number 151, that from individuals become transformed from a stupid, limited animal into an intelligent being and a man. See, look, the way in which Rousseau used vocabularies to tell you the fact that one day, friends, you will become a man. One day you will become a citizen. One day you will become an intelligent, rational human being. From what state? From a stupid, limited animal. And at present, friends, you are in a corrupt society. And friends, you think that Rousseau is not starting from a state of nature as such. Rousseau was saying that state of nature is good. Clear? That point should be remembered well. State of nature was good, and in the state of nature you had no notion of right or bad. You were motivated by amor di soi. But the problem started when you created science, when you created art, when you created culture, when you created society and political order. Friends, you became corrupt, because your amor di soi has been replaced by amor proper, and your pity, your sympathies, your self-love all lost. Its place lost, and in its place you are filled with selfish love. That is so much stupid love. So friends, when you become a man in the new society, that which Rousseau wanted to create, just like on the food lines of ancient Roman Republic, a small society of few number of people. Your society should be should have only inhabited by few people, and according to Rousseau it is 10,000 people. Democracy should be inhabited by only 10,000 people, and Plato it was 5,040 something, if I am correct. And Rousseau says that, and in that society, that a new society which we are about to create through a social contract will be a new society in which you become first a citizen, then a man, then an intelligent being. And in that society, friends, justice will replace instinct, that is amor di soi. Justice, your sense of justice will replace amor di soi. Notion of duty replace physical impulse. Notion of duty replace impulse, that is political obligation. We are not only enjoying rights, we also have certain responsibility called political obligation. So duty replaces physical impulse, and notion of right will replace appetite. And friends, only in that society, only then can the souls of men become elevated. Souls of men become exalted. Souls of men achieve glory. Your mind develops. Your intellectual horizons become more expansive, and your feelings take to a new path. Look, the way in which Rousseau gives you explanation about what happens in the new society. Man will progress. Man will progress. You become a beautiful man. You will become an intelligent creature in the new society. And see, friends, this is possible. Why? Because Rousseau had a notion of a plastic man. That is, your character can be shaped from time to time. How? By education, by state intervention. A state which is created on ethical principle. Right. So this is Rousseau's notion of plastic man. And we will come to these kinds of ideas again in our two more readings in next classes. We have two more readings, Maclan and George Klosko, J.S. Maclan and George Klosko. When we come through their writings and their readings, we will get a more, a polished idea of what Rousseau said about man and his nature. And here, your David Boucher gives a broad perspective, a certain perspective about Rousseau's man, and we are sticking on to that, readings only, and later we will get more ideas about Rousseau's man. And friends, And David Boucher invite your attention to another problem in Rousseau, the problem of freedom. Friends, it's a very significant question in Rousseau. That friends, you see, we are all born. Rousseau says that we are all born free, right? So we are all born free. The problem is that we love freedom, right? We don't want to be under the command of any other person or any other agency. So we want to be under our command always. That's what humans are. And that is what humans are famous for. So if somebody want to command upon you, you will always get angry. All the human beings, if I command you, you will get angry. And if you command me, I will also get angry. That is what human nature is. We never love to be under the command of any other person. Right. So the problem that Rousseau sees that human beings wants to be free right from the nature. That is what his nature is, right? That point number one. But friends, there is also another ambition in man. What is that? Human beings wanted to live in a political society under a collective. So this is complementary. Sorry, this is contradicting. How can we live in a society of common ownership, common right, common perspectives about justice, common law, without compromising our notions of our own freedom? It's a very, very delicate, what we may call, it's a question that is somewhat so intriguing. In Rousseau, it's an intriguing question, friends. You see, for example, you are saying that I want to be free, but I am, also under a law. So if you are under a law, you have certain obligations to obey the law. And you say that you are free. Your Article 19 says that, you are free. There are certain freedoms in the fundamental rights part of the Indian Constitution. And while studying Indian Constitution, friends, particularly part 3 of the Indian Constitution, which talks about fundamental rights, and the fundamental rights part gives you so many rights through various articles, and under 19, 20 and 21 you will get so many rights. And Article 19 you will get certain particular freedom to move throughout the territory of India, to conduct, to organize associations, to assemble peacefully. So many rights in the Indian Constitution, particularly under Article 19. And you see, friends, despite the fact that all these are being stated in Article 19, 20 and 21, there is an Article 14 also which says that all are equal before law. All of you are equal before law, which says that no man is above law, no man is below law. In the eyes of the law in India, in the Constitution, all of you are equal. Friends, in that scenario, in which you are equal in the eyes of the law, how can you enjoy freedom being mentioned in Article 19, Article 20 and Article 21, particularly under Article 19, that says you have certain liberty, you have liberty to criticize the government, but at the same time the article in another part says that you all are equal before law. So friends, this is a technical question. So also, it's an intriguing question. So Rousseau was more concerned with this issue in human life. That is, we want to be free, but at the same time, we want to live under a society. And how to overcome this conflict to us is prime concern in the social contract, friends. He was more concerned with how to resolve this issue, that I want to be so much free. I never want to be under the command of any other person, but at the same time, I want to live in a collective, a state, a political order, under a law. So it's a very difficult. That's why Rousseau, in page number 141 of Social Contract, his book Social Contract, page number 141, says that man was born free and he is everywhere in chains. It's a beautiful phrase he used. Man was born free and is everywhere in chains. So the social contract is an answer to this question, that how to find freedom under a collective. How to discover, how to construct or how to engineer an association or a community that defends and protects with a common force, with a person and the goods, each one of you within that community. that you are being united under an association. You are being united under an association. You are being gathered under a common platform called the state or political authority. And within that authority, you are also going to enjoy freedom and liberty. And it is possible by a social contract, Rousseau was saying. Rousseau was saying that, nevertheless, you obey yourself, you are also obeying everybody. Nevertheless, you are looking into your liberty, so that you are also looking into into protect the liberty of other people. So how that society is possible? And Rousseau was saying that society is possible. Friends, that society is possible. How? If you create a society on the basis of contractual obligations. That you enter into a contract. Why you enter into a contract? When two parties come into a contract, contract number 1 and contract number 2 will have certain obligations. That you are supposed to do this thing and you are not supposed to do that thing. In such a society, that is a society based on contractual obligations, in such society, you will both obey laws, at the same time, you will have freedom. So that is possible through an idea of what may be called social contract. So friends, to achieve this, David Boucher tell you that you have to form a society based on general will. So here comes the most terrific and most mystifying concepts in political philosophy, just like what Plato said about intelligible mind and cave theory, or what Plato said about forms, theory of forms. Just like that, friends, here Rousseau, in the footlines of Plato's political philosophy, proposed another most difficult concept in social philosophy. What is that? The theory of general will and democracy. It's very difficult to explain to an average mind what does it mean to say general will according to Rousseau. So Rousseau proposes general will to overcome that difficulty. What is that difficulty? I told you a short while ago that you wanted to live under a law, you wanted to live under a political system. At the same time, you wanted to be free. And this conflict of love for freedom and your interest in living under a common political authority can be resolved by creating a society on contractual obligations, and these contractual obligations will function according to an abstract concept called general will and democracy. And friends, David Boucher just gives some broad idea about general will in his reading, but we will have in-depth understanding about general will, which is Rousseau's most famous and most intriguing concept. We will come to that discussion when we read George Klosko and J.S. Macklanch. Here, David Boucher makes certain passing references to general will and democracy. And what is it? Rousseau makes a distinction between two types of will, that humans have two types of wills. What is that? That is, humans got a reason and also passion. That you like ice cream, right? You like ice cream. At the same time, you also have a good mind about what is an ice cream and why it is, whether I should eat it or not, whether it is fair, based on certain ethical principles. That is, a reason. So we have a reason and we have passion. And when a man's will is dominated by passion, Rousseau calls that is particular will. When a man is motivated by passion, that, you are thinking that, oh, if I do that thing, whether society would, frown upon me, if my action is right or if my action is wrong, whether society would judge me. So these kinds of thought are basis of particular will. That is called particular will. And friends, particular will is bad according to Rousseau. But particular will is steered by passion, thoughts of passion. That I like car, but when I like car, what other people would think about that car, whether people appreciate me or not, whether my car is small or big, whether my car is this or that. So what other people would think about, that is called particular will. And your will, when it is ruled by a reason, Rousseau calls it real will. That is, when you buy a car or when you eat an ice cream, you think that whether you thinks about the morality of that act. That what is an ice cream, how it happened to be an ice cream, who sell it, and why that person sell it, and was it giving him an earning, whether he got a family. So these kinds of notions about so that I can give him more money, even if he sell that particular ice cream for rupees 20, I can give him 30 rupees. So this way of thoughts, that's called what may be called positive will, or will according to reason. So you are able to also apply reason. And when your will is ruled by reason, Rousseau says that is general will or real will. That is called real will. So general will is composed of each individual's real will. So when the real will is understood in the social context, for Rousseau, it is general will. When the real will is understood in the social context, it is called general will. And general will is more than the sum of individual wills. It is more than the sum of individual wills. That all people will have wills, and general will is more than the sum total of the individual wills. For Rousseau, general will is more than the sum total of individual wills, because general will is the reflection of common good. You imagine that there are so many people in this class. Each one of you buy an ice cream, and each one of you buy an ice cream on the basis of the thought I said, that you went to somewhere in a park and you have seen a boy selling ice cream, and he is selling ice cream for rupees 20, but another person at the same place sell ice cream for rupees 10, and you are looking at both the person, and you have money in your pocket or bag, and you went there and you asked the price, and there one person said it is 20, the other person said it is 10, and when you look at the person who said ice cream cost 20, and you found that by your own reason that this person is poor and he needs more money and he got some problem, so he want to pay the hospital bill of some of his kith and kin, so he is suffering from some illness, so his family is poor, so that you decided to buy ice cream from the person who sell for rupees 20 than from the person who sell ice cream for rupees 10, and you think that if you are able to give him rupees 30 for an ice cream, see what a beautiful person you are. That is called general will. That's a real will. If you think that all the person in your society thinks the same way, such a broad perspective, such an idea of good society, if you are such a rational, reasonable mind, how society is beautiful, right? How society is beautiful. So Rousseau was thinking about such a romantic society. He was such a romantic a being. He imagined about a beautiful society of beautiful individual, man, citizen, intelligent human being. So friends, that's why Rousseau said general will is more than the sum total of all the individual wills, because general will reflect the common good and not the interest of a particular group or a particular person. So to go against the general will is to be in conflict with your will, with your real will. If you want to go against the general will, that is, you are thinking that why should I buy that ice cream for rupees 20, because I will get the same ice cream for rupees 10 from just a nearby place. Why should I go for an ice cream which costs more than what it should be expected to sell in the society. So if you think that way, if you start judging things that way, friends, you are acting against general will. You are acting against general will. So you are not supposed to do that, because you have to be an intelligent human being. You have to become a man. You have to become a citizen. So to go against the general will is to be in conflict with your real will. So thus, who refuses to obey the general will be forced to do so by the entire body. Whoever refuses to obey the general will be forced to do by the entire body. This means merely that he will be forced to be free. That is, this means merely that he will be forced to be free. That is listed in social contract, page number 1. That is, associations smaller than the state, such as trade unions or guilds or groups or clubs, that is necessarily reflect the interest of a particular group or a particular interest. It is good. You may have associations, clubs, students groups, and other things, sports club, reading clubs, etc. It's good. But Rousseau says that such clubs and associations represents only particular will, because you are a member of a group because you want to protect a particular interest. But when you are a member of a political society which is based on general will, on contractual obligations, that's a good society. So that Rousseau says that associations and clubs must be discouraged, even banned. They should be banned. So Rousseau says that general will is not necessarily the will of all. No, general will is not necessarily the will of all. General will is good will. General will is that will which creates a good society on ethical principle. So Rousseau suggests that general will is the residue left. You so be clear about the vocabulary he uses. General will is the residue left after the pluses and minuses have cancelled themselves out. Rousseau is becoming more abstract here. That is, he was saying that general will is the residue left. He uses the word residue left. General will is the residue left after the pluses and minus have cancelled themselves out. That you have cleared off all bad wills in the society, all particular interest in the society. Those people who go for ice cream for ₹20, you remove all of them and you create an ideal society. That is a pure democracy. That is the basis of good democracy. Rousseau says that is the basis of good democracy. And he argued that principles of deputies or representatives are wrong idea, that you cannot represent your real will in another person. That is, you are going to buy an ice cream for ₹20, even though it is available for ₹10 in a nearby place. So you are not going to buy that ₹10 ice cream because you think that it is fair to give ₹20 to that person because he needs some money. And friends, Rousseau says that, do you think that your character, that is your moral character, do you think that, friends, that moral character that is unique to each one of you sitting in this class, whether that can be represented in another person and can be represented in a parliament, and that representative will enact laws for you on the basis of that general will you have? It's difficult, right? It's very difficult. It's a very complicated thing. So you can't represent your character, your moral character, that bought ice cream for ₹20, which cannot be represented in a second person, in a third person, or nobody can represent you in a parliament. So representative democracy is waste. It's a wrong idea. You can't represent your real will. You can't represent your general will in a body. Rousseau talks about pure democracy, that all all the citizens are his own master. All of you are your own master, and you are part of the political society. So you are the lawgiver. You are the lawgiver. You are the lawmaker. This is the Rousseauian idea. So, friends, we can, put a full stop to general will here, because we will talk about general will extensively in the readings of Maitland and George Glasgow in our next reading. We will get some different idea about general will in their writings. So I'm going to wind up this lecture by referring to one more point, that is Rousseau's idea of lawgiver, religion, and censorship. Rousseau's idea of lawgiver, religion, and censorship. And friends, Rousseau says that lawgiver or legislature is an important notion in the interpretation of social contract. Rousseau says that the difficulty is that people are currently dominated by their passions and guided by your particular wills. That your character is shaped, your character is molded by your particular will. That you always prefer. Most friends, you think most people in our society will prefer that 10 rupee ice cream, not 20 rupee ice cream. Am I correct? Most of you will prefer not the 20 rupee ice cream, but the 10 rupee ice cream. Why? Because we are always like that. Because man is like that. We always look into ourselves. So the problem is that you are always dominated by passion and guided by your own interest. So that it is very difficult for you to understand what is general will. It is very difficult for you to understand what is general will. That how to buy that ice cream for rupees 20 is, it's very difficult for you to understand. Why should I buy that ice cream for rupees 20 when I am able to get ice cream for rupees 10? So here comes the significance of a lawgiver or legislator. So the job of lawgiver is to frame basic constitutional law. The role of lawgiver is to frame basic constitutional laws. The lawgiver formulates fundamental laws which you are obliged to obey. That is, people will be acting in accord with the general will. People will be acting in accord with the general will. So the role of lawgiver is to formulate fundamental constitutional laws, and you are all supposed to obey that fundamental constitutional law, because that fundamental constitutional law will represent general will. This is one idea about lawgiver. Then he talks about idea that lawgiver must use religion. Here, friends, that for proposing this idea, he became unfavorable in both Geneva and Paris for proposing this idea. That is, lawgiver must use religion as an instrument to bring order in the society. And he was saying that a religion divided people. A religion demanded dual allegiances. What is that? Religion demanded allegiances to God's word as well as to ruler's word. That's why religion corrupted man. See, he became atheist. He was trying to speak against religion, particularly Christianity in Europe. So that Rousseau distinguished three types of religion. One is religion of man, then religion of citizen, and the religion of the priest. That is the religion of man, the religion of citizen, and the religion of the priest. And Rousseau thinks, friends, these three types of religions are bad because they are subversive to the good government. They are subversive to general will. And he particularly stated this idea. That's why he was expelled from Paris and Geneva. What is that? He said, Christianity produced a people of slave mind. So see, today we can't say like this, that Hinduism produced a slave mind, or Islam produced a slave mind, or Christianity produced a slave mind. So you will be charged with blasphemy and you will be attacked by believers, right? Today you can't say that. But Rousseau in the 18th century said this idea that Christianity is produced a people of slave mind, and Christianity produced a people of slaves amenable to being oppressed by tyranny. So those who believe in Jesus Christ are created that way, in which Christians simply give sanctions to tyranny. Right? Beautiful assertion. So Christianity, he asserted, Rousseau asserted, Christianity, he asserted, preaches only servitude and dependence. It always talks about love, love, love. That is what only Christianity knows. And it creates servitude, friends. If you always talk about love, you will become a slave mind. So that Rousseau said, state should form its own religion. State should have its own religion. And religion should be closely attached under the control of state. And state should take steps to prescribe religious laws for the believers to follow. This is what Rousseau talks about lawgiver, religion, and censorship. He wants to censor all the poets, writers, and literary figures. That's what I have already told you in the previous lecture. Friends, this is what Rousseau by David Boucher. This lecture is ended now. The floor is open for questions if you have.